And of course, we're keeping you updated on Jodi Arias. The big news we talked about yesterday is there's a settlement conference set up for October 24th, and we wonder, is there a deal in the works? What is going on today? Jodi Arias and her attorneys behind closed doors with Judge Sherry Stevens, and they're talking about an evidentiary hearing today. And among the topics, whether or not the jurors' Twitter accounts will be looked at as they decide a jury. Change of venue. Will you sequester the jury? Big issues as we move forward and look down the line to if and when there's going to be a new jury to retrial the penalty phase of this case. Again, Jodi Arias convicted first-degree murder, brutal murder of Travis Alexander. She's either going to spend life behind bars or get the death penalty unless there's a deal worked out, and we'll keep you updated on that. Meantime, let's talk about this evidentiary hearing. Anna Yum with us, great attorney. All right, Anna, let's hit on some of these topics. Which one of these is biggest to you? And what, I mean, change of venue. Let's start with that one. What are the odds that's going to happen?
Sure. Hi, Mike.
Hey.
Nice to see you. Honestly, I don't think the change of venue is going to happen. I mean, this case has been in the media from the beginning, and you really would have to not pay attention to the news, period, in order to not have heard about this case. I mean, when we're talking about the familiarity of this case, we're talking about the same levels of George Zimmerman. Everyone's heard about the Jodi Arias case, and I don't think a change of venue is really going to solve the problem or solve the issue. And again, remember, Jodi Arias is the one who has been exposing herself to this publicity. By having her Twitter account and by giving interviews against the advice of her attorneys. So I really don't think that this is going to be a situation where Judge Stevens is going to grant a change of venue. I don't think that's going to solve the problem.
And it costs money. Change of venue. No. How about Twitter accounts? Looking at jurors' Twitter accounts. You think that's going to happen? We saw that in Zimmerman. Social media looked at and people were bounced off the jury. What do you think?
I think that's going to happen. I do. I think that because of the social media world that we live in, I think that the judge is going to grant that motion because if you think about it, so much can be said and done on Facebook and Twitter, and I really don't think that's much of a huge situation to ask the jurors to do that. I think that the judge is going to grant that motion. I think the defense attorneys are going to be successful, especially because of the Twitter world that we live in. Okay,
no on change of venue. Yes, looking at Twitter accounts. Number 3, real quick, sequestering the jury. Yes or no?
No, I don't think it's going to happen. Same with my answer regarding the change of venue. I don't think the sequestering of the jury is going to happen, especially with the resources, the amount of time, the amount of money. I mean, the first trial was so heavily publicized. I just don't see Judge Stevens granting this motion. I just don't think it's going to happen, Mike.
Last one real quick. Limiting live media coverage. Yes or no?
No. I think Judge Stevens is still going to allow media coverage. I mean, the first trial was so heavily covered by the media, and the public has a right to know. And like I said before, Jodi Arias is really making it people's business by going out of her way to publicize this case. I think Judge Stevens is going to say no to that.
Got it. All right. A yes and 3 no's. Last one real quick. Let's hit on that settlement conference. Do you think that there's a deal in the works?
Quite possibly, Mike, because the goal of the attorneys is always to see if there's any purpose or any way to reach some sort of settlement negotiations. Now, as we know, October 24th is going to be the day as to whether there will be something in the works. And it's going to be interesting because I know that with the victims and the Victims' Bill of Rights, they have a big say in this. And I think that that Juan Martinez and the prosecutor's office is really going to take into consideration and balance, okay, what does the victims want? What do the victims want? Meaning, what does Travis Alexander's family want? And then also the balance of how expensive this is. Because if you think about it, the defense alone in the Jodi Arias case cost $2 million. And that's not even taking into consideration all of the other resources with the court being in session. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens.
All right. Anna, nice job coming out firing here on a Friday. We'll be checking back with you. That's the question as the jury continues to deliberate the Michael Jackson wrongful death trial. And the bottom line question, does AEG Live, the concert promoter, share in the responsibility of the death of the king of pop? And it boils down to really 5 questions that the jury's wrestling with. And number 1 is a simple one. It's not simple to figure out, though. Did AEG Live hire Dr. Conrad Murray? That's number 1, and things hinge right off of that. The Jackson family says yes, and they have the emails that say yes. One from an AEG executive talking about Murray saying, we want to remind him that it is AEG and not MJ, Michael Jackson, who's paying his salary. You would think that email and oral agreements would constitute a hiring. Let's go back to Anna Yum, our great attorney. Anna, who's winning that argument on who hired Conrad Murray? Because that's huge here.
It is huge. That's the $2 billion question, both literally and figuratively, right? You know, it's a really tough call, but I think those smoking gun emails are so damaging to AEG because really the writing's on the wall, and in this case, the writing's in the email. We'd like to remind you, Dr. Murray, who's paying your salary? It's not Michael Jackson, it's us, AEG Live. And I think that's the biggest issue that the Michael Jackson family attorney is really harping on by saying, look, they were negligent in hiring him. Even though the contract wasn't signed, it was still an oral contract, which is just as valid as a written contract. And that contract, Mike, was backdated to May of 2009, which leads us to believe that there was some sort of contractual relationship. And remember, it's 9 out of 12. It's not a unanimous. It's 9 out of 12. So if 9 of those 12 jurors believe that, then there could be some issue as to whether AEG is liable.
Got it. You know, and again, you referred to the emails that I read there. And that could be the best argument. Real quick, on the other side, you've got Marvin Putnam for AG Live saying Michael's a grown man, made his own choices. Right. That's a good argument, too.
Right. That's an absolutely good argument, and I think a lot of people are really resonating towards that argument as well. He said, it's the sad truth is that Michael Jackson is dead because of his own poor choices, of the choices that he made as a 50-year-old grown man. How was AEG Live supposed to know what he was doing behind closed doors? This is a doctor that he wanted and he was seen by before AEG Live even got in the picture. And I think that's the real essence of what Mr. Putnam was arguing when he said to the jury, hey, how are we supposed to know that this was going to happen?
Got it. All right. Jury continues to deliberate. Anna, thanks again. We'll stay on top of that for you. And now this. Welcome once again. This is HLN News Now. I'm Mike Galanos. All right, coming up a little bit later this afternoon, Jodi Arias and her attorneys back in court, closed-door session with the judge. And this is an evidentiary hearing and some big issues. Now, that means then that's looking ahead. If there is a new jury impaneled to retry the penalty phase, again, Jodi Arias, convicted murderer, brutally murdering Travis Alexander. She's going to get the death penalty or life behind bars. But that leads us to that if proposition here, because we find out yesterday that there's a settlement conference set up for October 24th, and you hear that word settlement, you wonder, is there some kind of plea in the works? But for the here and now, we're talking about the evidentiary hearing and dealing with issues like whether or not potential jurors' Twitter accounts are going to be looked at, is there going to be a change of venue, sequester the juries, or you see Sherry Stevens again, she'll be listening to that. Is there going to be a limit on live media coverage as well? So let's unleash Anna Young, great attorney here, as we walk our way through this. And actually, do we have Jeff with us as well? All right. We've got the Justice Squad in full. Jeff Gold with us as well. Okay, Anna, I'll let you take first crack at this and some of these topics, and let's go down the line. I think number one is whether or not there's going to be a change of venue, which would cost a lot, Anna, right?
Right, absolutely, Mike. It's going to cost a lot, and there's going to be a lot of resources expended if this motion were to be granted. I just don't see it happening, because one of the most important issues that Judge Stevens is going to have to look at is what's the prejudice? Is there a prejudice to Jodi Arias if there weren't to be a change of venue? And let's be honest, everyone's heard about this case. You'd have to live under a rock not to have heard about it. I just don't think that Judge Stevens is going to expend the resources nor the time to grant this motion for a change of venue. Got it.
Another costly matter, potentially, Jeff, sequestering the jury. You think that's going to happen?
Well,
and let's get you to weigh in on this. And again, here's the quote from the Maricopa County attorney talking about what this settlement conference, and it's vague terminology, and it kind of sums up what Jeff's saying, that the state's always willing to discuss possible resolutions to this case. So how does that go down, Anna? I mean, they get in there and a settlement conference plays out how?
Right, Mike. I mean, I think that the prosecutor is really going to have to balance the difference between what the victims want, meaning Travis Alexander's family, and what would be the best resources expended for purposes of either settling or taking it to the death penalty and picking another jury. I mean, I really think that the prosecutor is going to have to take into consideration the resources. And Jeff raised a good point about whether Jodi Arias would waive her appellate rights for purposes of exchanging, you know, getting death off the table and having life. I don't personally see that happening because the defense attorneys have put so many issues and they've preserved the record for purposes of appeal. I really don't see that happening, and I agree. I think Jodi Arias is somewhat narcissistic, and I think she wants to keep this in the media. She wants to make sure her name is still relevant. I just don't see a settlement happening. I don't know. That's just my inkling. That's my opinion.
Well, let's
we'll see
listen.
what happens, though.
You know, she likes her voice to be heard, and one of the last times we heard her speak was in her allocution. She's basically speaking to the jury, pleading for life. So let's listen to that, and then we'll talk about it coming out. And Anna, we're finding out that the judge is not Judge Sherry Stevens, but a judge by the name of James Keppel, and we're hearing good things about this judge. He's a little bit older, fatherly, a wise judge. Isn't that what's needed here? As you've got this high-profile case, you've got Jodi Arias, who it's like trying to nail Jell-O to the wall to get her to tell the truth. You got a lot of factors here, Anna.
Right, absolutely. I completely agree with you on that. I mean, this judge is a retired judge, and that's what you want in terms of someone who can try to facilitate a settlement, someone who can kind of detract from the situation, because as you know, Judge Stevens was the judge for the actual trial, and this judge, he wasn't the judge for the trial. He's older, he's retired, he's going to look at everything, and he's really going to see if he can bring the two attorneys together, because that's the entire purpose of trying to reach a negotiated disposition and trying to reach settlement. I think that she has that in her favor if this case is going to settle. All
right, our Justice Squad locked and loaded, and we're going to talk about this one coming up. Florida woman says she is humiliated.